Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to start factoring day 2, so you're going to need your foldable notes out, please, a pen or pencil, and perhaps a calculator. All right, let's get started. Learning targets, again, you guys, you can put them on the front or the back, wherever you wish. But today we're going to be talking about how you can factor trinomials using the AC method. You're also going to be able to factor difference of perfect squares. So those are the two things we're going to be working on today. So once again, you guys, factoring trinomials and difference of perfect squares. So we'll jump right into it. We're going to do factoring trinomials or AC method. Okay, this needs to be written on top, please. You need to take the A, the coefficient, times the C, which is the constant. Okay. Then ask what multiplies to make that number and adds up to the middle term, so our B. Okay. Once we get that, we're going to turn it into a four-term or a grouping problem, so what we already did the other day. So we're going to work through these 3 examples, all right? First thing I like to do with all of these, you guys, is I like to say what my A, B, and C are. My A is what's in front here, so my A is going to equal 1. My B is going to equal 7, that's my middle term, and my C equals 6. Once I get this far, I'm going to set up my AC method. So what that means is I'm going to take A times C, and my goal is that it's going to add up to equal B. So over here I'm going to take 1 times 6, which equals 6, and I need to come up with 2 numbers that add together to equal 7. So when my 2 numbers have to multiply to equal 6 and add up together to equal 7. So if I think of factors of 6, like 1 times 6, 2 times 3, okay, those are my factors of 6. Well, if I take 1 times 6, I get 6, and if I take 1 plus 6, I get 7. So once I'm there, I'm going to rewrite my problem. I'm replacing my 7x with my 1 and my 6. So I'm going to get x squared plus 6x plus 1x plus 6. So the only thing that's changing, you guys, is I'm changing my 7x into 6x plus 1x, which is the same as 7x, so I can do that. Once I get here, I'm going to use my grouping method. So I'm going to group this part and this part. Now my first group here, I'm going to take out my greatest common factor, which is x. So take an x out of both sides, so I get x. What's left is x plus 6. I'm going to do the same thing over here. What can I take out of 1x and 6? I can just take out a positive 1, so I put plus 1 here. What's left is x plus 6. Now once I have this done, I'm going to take out my common denominator again, which is that x plus 6. This is what should be the same. So if I take out x plus 6 out of both of them, write that out in front, so I have x plus 6, and then I'm going to use what's left over. So in this case I have an x and a 1, so I have x plus 1. And this is going to be our final answer. Now if I would multiply this out using distributive property, I would get back to the x squared plus 7x plus 6. So there's example number 1. Now we're going to work on example number 2. All right, same thing, you guys. I'm going to start with A equals 1, B equals negative 6, C equals negative 16. Set this up. I'm going to take A times C, and it has to add up to B. So I'm going to get 1 times negative 16, which is negative 16, and I need to come up with 2 factors that add up to negative 6. So if I think about 16, I could do 1 times 16. And remember, if it's negative, one of them has to be negative. So I could have negative 1 times 16. I could have 1 times negative 16. What else? I could have 8 times negative 2. Now if I do 8 times negative 2 and I add it up, I get a positive 6. So I'm going to do negative 8 times 2. This is the one that's going to work for me, because when I take negative 8 plus 2, I'm going to get 6. So this is what's going to replace my negative 6x. So if I rewrite my problem, I'm going to get x squared minus 8x plus 2x minus 16. Right? Once we're here, we're going to go right back into our grouping method. So go like this and like this. Group my first one, I can take out an x. So I have an x. X minus 8 is left over when I take out x's. My second one, I'm going to take out a positive 2. So I'm 2 out in front, and I'm left with x minus 8. Now we have in common here, I have x minus 8 and x minus 8. So I'm going to take those out. When I get there, that's going to go out in front. So I have x minus 8. And then I'm going to use what's left over. So I have an x plus 2. So I have x plus 2. That is my factored form for this one. Okay? And if I would distribute this through, I would get the same as I started with, x squared minus 6x minus 16. All right, moving on to the last one for AC method or trinomial factoring. This one, when we look at it, we're going to look a little bit different than the first two because our a is no longer 1. Our a in this one is 3. So I have a equals 3, b equals 1, c equals negative 2. Same thing, you guys. I'm going to break this apart. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a times c, and it has to add up to b. So I'm going to take 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. And then I have to come up with two factors that add up to 1. Now, this one, I have to have a positive one, but when I multiply, I have to give a negative 6. So one's going to be positive, and one's going to be negative. So if it's a negative 6, I have 1 times 6, okay, or 2 times 3. Now I'm going to use 2 and 3, but my 2 has to be negative so that I can add them up and I get a positive 1. And when I multiply negative 2 times 3, I get a negative 6. Okay? So now this is going to replace this positive 1x. So when I write this, I'm going to now have 3x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 2. Right, we're going to group these. My first one, the largest thing I can take out is an x. So I have an x out in front, and I'm left with 3x minus 2. And my second one, the largest thing I can take out is a 1. So I have a plus 1, and I'm left with 3x minus 2. Now when I have this, these two are the same, so I can take one of those out. I can take out a 3x minus 2. Once I do that, I'm going to have 3x minus 2, and I'm going to be left with x plus 1. So my other factor is going to be x plus 1. And those are my two factors for this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen? So there is our AC method. The biggest thing is we have to remember we have to take a times c. Once we figure out what that is, we have to find the factors of that number that will add up to our b, or our middle term. All right, moving on to difference of perfect squares. These ones are fun. So please write this up on top, please. You need to identify if you have each of the following. These are very important. In order to factor these, this has to happen. First, it has to be a difference. So it has to be subtraction. Okay? Has to. Second thing, you have to have perfect squares. So we're talking like 4, 9, 16. Okay, those are all perfect squares. If you need to make a list of them, please do. Right. Then we're going to factor into two factors. One's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So we're going to look at these following 7 examples. I know it's a lot, but these ones go by really fast, you guys. So if we look at number 1, I have x squared minus 49. So first thing is a difference. Yes, I have subtraction. Okay. Second thing is 49 a perfect square. Yes. 7 squared is what equals 49. So that's a perfect square. Once we have identified that they're a perfect square and a difference, all you're going to do is you're going to create 2 factors. Okay. We're going to put an x in both. And then we're going to put plus and minus. And then perfect square of 49 is 7. So you're going to plug that in. That one's done now. That's it. Moving on to example number 2. Make sure we have subtraction. Now I have a number in front of my x squared and I have a number at the end. Both of them have to be perfect squares. In this case they are, because 2 squared equals 4 and 3 squared equals 9. So they're both perfect squares, so this is still going to work for us. We're going to set up our 2. But now instead of just writing x, we have to write 2x, because 2 is the perfect square of 4. 1 still plus, 1 still minus, and then the perfect square of 9 is 3. So we're going to plug that in there. And now that one's all done. Moving on to our next one, example number 3. I have 81 minus w squared. So first thing, I have subtraction. That's important. 81 squared, that is, or excuse me, 9 squared equals 81. So we have a perfect square. Same idea, set it up into 2. Now this time, instead of starting with our variable, we're going to start with our number. So square root of 81 is 9. So I have a 9 and a 9. 1 addition, 1 subtraction, and then we're going to have w and w. Okay. Now that one is all done. All right, example number 4. We have 16 and 25, which are both perfect squares, because 4 squared equals 16 and 5 squared equals 25. And we're using our difference, our subtraction. So we're just going to have our 2 set up. Now we're going to have 4x in both of them. One's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Perfect square of 25 is 5. And we are done. Okay, that one's all done. Moving on to number 5. We are cruising. We have 4x squared minus 7. Okay, I have my difference, my subtraction. I know that 2 squared equals 4. Now 7. This is where we're going to run into a problem, you guys. 7 is not a perfect square. So if one of our numbers is not a perfect square, then we can't factor this. So this one can't be factored. Okay, and that's okay. So my answer for this one is just going to be 4x squared minus 7. I'm not going to do anything to it. That's it. And that'll happen if we don't have our perfect squares. All right, now sometimes we get to do the GCF first, so get excited. When you see it, if it's not a perfect square right away, see if you can take something out. So like in example number 6, I have 5x squared minus 20. Well, 5 and 20 aren't perfect squares, but I can take 5 out of both of these. So my 5 is going to go in front. I'm left with x squared minus 4. Now when I look at this one, I'm like, oh yeah, this will work because I have my difference. I know that 2 squared equals 4, so I have my perfect square. Now when I write this one, you guys, we can't forget about this 5 out front that we took away. Okay, that greatest common factor is like that super annoying little brother or sister that go with you everywhere. You can't lose them or your parents would be mad at you. So we're going to put that 5 out in front because we can't forget about them. We have x squared minus 4, so I'm going to break that into my 2. X plus x minus, perfect square of 4 is 2. So that 5 is going to be part of my answer out in front. And then I have x plus 2 and x minus 2. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, last example for the day. For this one, first thing we have to do is take out a greatest common factor. I know I can take out 2. But I have an x cubed and an x, so I can also take out an x. So when I rewrite this one, I'm going to get 2x, and then left on the inside, I'm just going to have x squared, because I took one away, minus 36. Okay. Once I've done that, I can break this one down. I have subtraction. 36 is a perfect squared. 6 squared equals 36. Now I'm breaking it down even more. Remember, can't forget the super annoying brother or sister. You're going to get in trouble. So that 2x is going to stay out in front. We're going to break it down into our two factors. I have x and x. One's positive, one's going to be negative. And square root of 36 is 6. So my final answer is going to be 2x times the quantity x plus 6 times the quantity x minus 6. All right, wonderful people. That is all I have for you today. So I hope you go out and enjoy your wonderful day, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.